Hi everyone, good evening. We will start in just 5 more minutes. Our speaker, Fatema Agarkar ji, is running 5 minutes late. So my apologies to everyone, but we will start in 5 minutes. In the meantime, I welcome you all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session. I think Fatema ji is running late, so we will start first with Dr. Vijay Chauthaiwala. Dr. Vijay, are you with us? Vijay ji, can you hear me? Dr. Vijay? Dr. Vijay, can you hear me? Hello? Okay, he's also joining again. So sorry to everyone. I think both our speakers today have had a little bit of challenge with their audio and video. But I think in the meantime, when they join, I just want to give everybody a background as to why we, thought of this session and what was the context behind it. So, we have been talking about in all our sessions mostly from a perspective of, typical corporate boardroom discussions, management professionals from various walks of life. And if you remember, we also had a discussion with people from the arts and sports fraternity with Anjum Chopra and Abhishek. But I think most of those people, they all followed their passions, if you recollect, and they all had a plan in their mind in terms of what they wanted to achieve, and they went for it and they achieved. But today's session is very interesting from a perspective that today we've got two people who actually started out in a certain manner or in a certain frame of mind, but they actually changed their path midway in their career, and they did some pretty exciting things. So I think you will really enjoy hearing from both our speakers today that how they sort of proverbially picked the road less traveled and actually were bold enough to take a divergence in their path. So, I think we have our first speaker with us, Dr. Vijay ji. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
We are not able to see you, sir.
Oh, really? I am there very much.
Yes, we can see you, sir. Namaste.
Okay. Namaste. Namaste.
And I was just giving a context, Vijayji, before you joined, that typically most of the people we have on our show, they generally are passionate about what they do. They are committed, and from an early age, they know what they want to achieve, and they have all been achievers in their own right. But the only difference is that they set out to do what they wanted to do in the first place. And today's session, we've got two people. Both of you have been very amazing because you did something really great in your part A of the journey, if I may say. But in part B, you took a road less traveled or a path which was a bit unconventional, and you still made it, really far in that path. And just for everybody's reference, I mean, the entire description and the CV of Dr. Vijay Chauthaiwala is extremely huge, but I'm going to summarize it so all of you know the context and why he really took the road less travel. I want to give you that context. Dr. Vijay, he's a PhD, and he comes from a biotech R&D expertise, and he has worked in senior management role in pharma research and development for almost 18 years, and his last role was vice president of discovery research in Torrent Pharma, right? And he's been also a consultant in biotech field. He has got patents against his name. He has authored several books. So he was an expert in his field, right? And he set out to do what he wanted to do. But come 2014 and 15, he got an opportunity to try his hands at supporting the PMO and the Bharatiya Janata Party in their reach out initiatives for the NRIs and what they say, friends of BJP overseas. And he actually took that call, and since last 6-7 years he has been working in that domain. He's now the in charge foreign affairs for Bharatiya Janata Party, and he's also a member of various apex committees. Like, he's on the board of governors from for IIM in Raipur. He's also mission high level committee member of Atal Innovation Mission. I am also I'm a mentor with AIM, Dr. Vijay ji. So it's a great initiative by Niti Aayog, and I strongly support it. Dr. Vijay ji also sits on board of Health Technology Assessment in India, board of governors of Indian Institute of Scientific Education and Research, Pune. He's also in the governing body of Ramnarayan Ruia Autonomous College, Mumbai. And within his current role of head of foreign affairs, BJP, he has organized some of the large events which many of you must be aware of, which the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, did in the UK and in the US over last 4-5 years. He's also co-editor of two books, Hindutva in Present Context and The Modi Doctrine, New Paradigms in India's Foreign Policy. And his book was also forwarded by late Arun Jaitley ji and released by then Minister of Foreign External Affairs, Shri Sushma Swaraj ji. And he is a regular columnist in various newspapers, and he's a well-known figure and is a face to reckon with in the BJP's sort of face in the entire world outside India. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Vijay on our session. And before we get into detailed conversation with you, and I'm getting a lot of questions as well from people, I want to hear from you, Dr. Vijay, that when was that really that moment or time when you figured out that, okay, this is something I've been doing. I've been doing a great job at it, which is your part A of your life's journey as a biotech specialist, as a drug discovery R&D specialist. And I know you might have probably started out as a side gig, just wanted to explore this side of the world. But when was that moment when you thought that it's time to take a plunge into this uncharted territory, and how the part B innings of your life, which has been so successful, how did you take that call? I want you to share it with our viewers. You are on mute, sir.
So, Kartik, thanks a lot for inviting me here and a very elaborate introduction of mine. Uh, and I really appreciate you inviting me here. Few things happen in life by accident, and sometimes accidents are good. So my turn towards politics is also almost an accident.
Mhm.
Uh, in 2014 elections, before the elections, I was asked if I could take a sabbatical from my routine in company and join the campaign. And
Mhm.
I thought that let me take this experience because I never worked in politics. No, I never worked in any election campaign. So I took 4 months leave from my company, and my company was kind enough to give me that much leave, and I joined campaign. And it was a once in a lifetime experience. We could see and experience firsthand the history in making when Shri Narendra Modi was elected as Prime Minister for the first time. And in fact, after the results, uh, I came back from Delhi and joined my company, uh, thinking that, okay, one phase of life is over. It was an
Mhm.
exciting experience. Let me go to routine. Uh, and I had at that time also no intentions of joining politics. But then, after a couple of months, someone asked me in the party, would you be interested to join party? And my first reaction was kind of dismissive,
Mhm.
because I told him that I never worked in politics. I am not even a member of BJP. What will a professional like me do in politics? And thankfully, that leader, who is a very senior leader in BJP, even now, assured me that no, you come here and you will find it very not only attractive but also fulfilling experience. and then I was reaching. I already crossed 50 by then, so I thought, let me start my another inning, and if it doesn't work, let me see what I could always do something else in the life. So with great skepticism, I resigned from my job and joined party. So that's how I am where I am right now.
Very interesting. In fact, Vijay ji, a lot of people, when we were leading into this session, they were asking me. Many people are actually not even aware of this role and this cell within the party. That what all is included in foreign affairs. They think that party is supposed to only cater to voters and constituents within the country. They are not very aware of what kind of amazing initiatives you do under your leadership to sort of connect with the larger Indian diaspora around the world, and what kind of activities, events do you do? How do you connect with the local communities? Do you want to share with us a little bit about exactly what kind of work do you do?
See, BJP was the first political party in India who realized the importance of Indian diaspora overseas. And it started initially with some sympathizers coming as a Friends of India Society International platform, which actually started during emergency. Uh, and then some of them, they thought, especially in US and UK, thought that there should be some platform for BJP who can spread and also tell the policymakers in the overseas country about what BJP stands for, because BJP was just emerging uh, at that time. So in late 80s, early 90s, the overseas friends of BJP was set up. It was confined to few countries only.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's the origin of overseas friends of BJP.
Okay.
Then later on, there were two different cells in the party. One was, of course, overseas friends of BJP, and other was the foreign affairs cell. When Mr. Amit Shah became party president, he uh, uh, he dissolved multiple cells and converted into various departments.
Okay.
And in this restructuring, both these cells, Foreign Affairs Cell and the Overseas Friends of BJP, was merged into one department, and that is Foreign Affairs Department. And I was made in charge of that department. So that is the history. Now, what I do is basically my main job is to connect with the diaspora and spread a message of what's happening in India to the larger audience across the world. And for that, we effectively use this overseas friends of BJP as a very effective platform. We have small and big branches in close to 40 countries. Some of them are not as active as I would wish to do it, have it, but most of them, they are active. So, so through them, we spread the Modi ji's agenda of development to our larger diaspora. So the second part, of course, is that BJP being now a very important party on even globally,
Right.
many diplomats based in Delhi would like to know what BJP is doing as a political party, and therefore interacting with uh, diplomats and the ambassadors and high commissioners of various countries in India, giving them party perspective, because government you get only the official part versions,
Right.
but what is the political narrative, what is the social issues, all that, that is second thing I do. And third, of course, is that coordination of this large diaspora interactions of Prime Minister Modi, uh, like Howdy Modi, etc., where almost all the activities are carried out by the local volunteers and the local teams, but still you need some amount of coordination and hand holding, sharing the experiences from the previous uh, events and do's and don'ts, especially because it's at the end prime ministerial event. So that is something takes a lot of my time.
Right.
So
In
this is
fact,
broadly the activities I do.
In fact, you mentioned interestingly about Howdy Modi, and also I think the event in London was a huge hit. And I'm sure it must be massive amount of coordination effort because there are local support groups, local communities, local independent chapters, community based on different demographics. I know there are different independent groups of BJP supporters and Indian diaspora. Share with us some of those behind the scene moments of how the entire energy leading up to these large events were. How difficult was it coordinating at such a huge scale of an unprecedented event? I know there was also a lot of politics around getting the passes. Many people could not get passes, and it was big news. Tell us a bit about how does all these things happen in practice.
See, as I told you, these events are organized by the local diaspora. Uh, it, uh, it is never a BJP event. It is never a overseas friends of BJP event. It is not a government event. It
Okay.
is managed by local diaspora. It is funded by local diaspora. So these are some of the things which many of us are not aware. They think that the government machinery, Indian government machinery pours in, but that doesn't happen. Uh, of course, there are some challenges, and we all know that if there are two Indians, there are three organizations. So each Indian, both of them, they will have their independent organization, and both of them they will come together to form third one.
Right.
So similarly, even uh, these countries also, Indians are very fragmented. People of Indian origin. You will be surprised to know that even in the Greater London area, I am not talking about entire UK or even entire England,
Mhm.
but even Greater London area, there are more than 1,000 Indian organizations.
Wow.
Uh, and the same thing is true in the major countries, major areas like New York, New Jersey, Silicon Valley. There are close to 600 organizations. In Texas alone, there are 500 plus organizations. So our main job is to bring all of them together. And fortunately for us, Prime Minister Modi ji is a great unifier. And on his name, most of them, they come together, uh, forgetting their internal differences, regional
Mhm.
differences, linguistic differences. And once they come together, then they themselves form the committees and then take it forward. Funding is also raised locally, both in terms of donor. Most of them is as part of donors, some in part of sponsorships. Uh, there's enormous amount of volunteers involvement is there in such a kind of event, uh, and so hundreds of volunteers literally work day and night after their office hours. Some of them they take full week, 10 days off to complete this work, and it's a very massive volunteer effect. I'll just, and there are hundreds of such stories I can tell you, but only one thing I will tell you that how
Mhm.
massive such efforts are. That in, for example, in Howdy Modi, it was done in the stadium, American football stadium,
Right.
and we wanted that each one who comes there, uh, everywhere, even at Wembley, in London, where there were 60,000 people,
Mhm.
each one comes pre-registered. No one can simply enter
Right.
without, and each one is given the entry ticket, but which is free. So entry pass, uh, and uh, in Howdy, we also wanted to give the seat number to each one of them.
Okay.
So not only to the around 40,000 people who will be sitting in the gallery, but
Mhm.
also the 8,000 people who would be sitting on the ground. Uh, and the ground arrangement we have made ourselves. So the numbering of chairs and then assigning those seats. So we went to the professional ticket master like people, if they
Mhm.
can do this task, and the charge they were asking was horrendous, around $4 to $5 per seat to issue this. So our people took the sitting arrangement in their hands, and they created some programs. Fortunately, we have a lot of IT expertise, and they issued all the tickets themselves with the seat numbers. So each one who came for that event already was knowing where he was supposed to sit, and that's a massive effort. But and it went flawlessly. No two people got the same seat number. So it shows that how much dedication of the volunteers is there in the conduct in organizing such events.
Right. Vijayji, also, I know our viewers would want to know more. I also know a little bit about it, but I think there is also a major role which you and your department plays in terms of talking about whether it's about some of the recent events around, certain bills or acts and how they are viewed by the larger demographics, or even, how the government is tackling the issue of COVID, or how the current situation between India and its neighbor being panning out, and certain you know not only political but economic attributes around those relationships and political narratives. Tell us a bit about what role your department also plays to pacify the mood of the public in general outside India, who may not have the direct access to what's happening on the ground, so they just hear in the international media and they make up a perception about it.
Yeah, so we use social media big way for this. So we have several WhatsApp groups across the world, and they have their own WhatsApp groups,
Mhm.
so that the cascading effect goes on very quickly. We also send these people very regular mails and update about what's happening in India, send them authentic literature. And our third part, of course, is our this OFBJP platform. They themselves conduct a lot of programs in order to educate people and tell them the real side of the story. So, in addition, now because of COVID, we couldn't do it, but many party leaders also regularly travel abroad, and whenever they go meeting diaspora, uh, most of them they put it as a part of their agenda. So they meet the diaspora, they give talks in front of diaspora members, have closed door interactions with a lot of people, and that also is one of the very effective ways to do it in the era of this COVID. We are using, of course, Zoom and other technologies. In fact, just before this event, I have started one very interesting series of events where I am bringing uh, the India's ambassador to
Right.
foreign countries
I saw
and
that. That's very well
their
done.
counterparts in New Delhi together to talk about the issues of mutual cooperation beyond pandemic. And just now I had a discussion with India's ambassador in Germany and Germany's ambassador in India. This was third of that kind. So we conduct many of such programs even during COVID to keep this dialogue going on.
Right. Vijayji, many of our audience members are actually management professionals. And in management, there is a concept of whenever people switch roles or companies or jobs, there is a concept of skills transferability, or, you transfer skills. In your case, tell us, could you manage to do any skill transfer from whatever you did in your part A innings, or did you have to completely learn new things in your new avatar?
No, it was learning by fire because there was no such precedence, especially with respect to conducting such a large events. So when I joined party, there was two events were already over. So Madison Square Garden, which was the historic first event of Prime Minister Modi, was over, and the second was in Sydney. So I joined when the Sydney event was about to take place. Uh, so in front of me, there were a lot of learning. So I initially, of course, learned a few things what had been done in at Madison Square Garden by talking to the people there. But then most of the other things we picked up and or we set up the systems as we went on. Uh, but one thing was very clear from the beginning, which I told you at the very beginning, that we have decided that this will not be the party event, this will
Hmm.
not be the government event, it will be the participatory event, and the larger diaspora needs to be involved in even in the organization. So those principles we have continued in every small and big program. Uh, Rest we have to fine tune as per the local needs, and therefore each one was a different challenge. So there is some part is as per the template, and some part is always innovation. And it's a great learning curve for me. Every small and big program gives me uh, new experience and new learning.
In fact, talking about deviation from the template, Vijayji, one would imagine the kind of events you talked about. These are all very, with a strong people connect. That Modi ji goes there. There are thousands of people who fill up the stadium, and there is that whole aura around that his leadership, which is dictated in a physical environment. With whatever is happening right now, and in times to come, at least for next 6 months to 1 year or 1.5 years, one cannot imagine that such large scale events would be possible, right? How do you see then your the work you are doing in terms of connecting with people, building that large scale events which have been a signature and a trademark of Bharatiya Janata Party and your work? How do you see that being again deviating from the template in the current environment?
See, I don't have any definitive answers about it, but yes, this is correct that there will be a time lag before we go to large event, and we are seriously thinking about how to bridge this gap uh, between now and till we go to normal, where so-called old normal activities start again. Uh, I don't have any specific answer right now because partly. Even India, Indian leadership, and also our global diaspora, global leadership, right now is involved in fighting with the COVID, and that is their first and maybe topmost and the only priority right now. So it is not very appropriate for me to talk about these alternative models. But yes, we are thinking about it, and we will come out with a very innovative technology-based solutions where this connectivity remains uninterrupted.
Right. Just in the interest of time, because I know you are also short on time, I have one last, call it question or input from you. Do you sometimes it happens that do you also, and I know you still run an independent consulting firm as well around biotech and pharma, but do you sometimes feel that, where have I landed myself into, or do you feel more familiar when you are doing when you're talking to your friends in the pharma industry, or you're doing a engagement on biotech or pharma? How do you manage that dilemma or quandary? I'm sure sometime it crosses your mind that that was a familiar territory for 20 years for you, and those feelings of doubt, or whether have I done the right thing, or do you, when you talk to your fraternity from the innings A, what kind of thoughts come into your mind, and what is your message to our viewers who also probably many of us are going through a similar stage of life? Because in COVID, I know many people are taking a career break. Some of them are changing their career paths and looking for alternative, career paths. So, what's your message to them?
Karthik, it's a complicated question, but let me tell you, I thought I generally tend to keep my life simple. So when I decided to plunge into politics, one thing I realized that I have made up my mind. And I was very clear in one lesson that someone told me long back that unless you lift up your back foot, you cannot go forward. You cannot keep your back foot intact and try to stretch your front leg, then you can go only that much. So if you want to walk or run, you have to lift your back foot first and go ahead. So that is number one. The second part is, of course, do I miss science? Do I miss whatever I used to do? It was also a very exciting part, and I do miss it. But I always uh, uh, try to see it like from the outsider's view as a very detached view. If someone asks me anything, I tell them what is my insight. but otherwise I still go to my old lab even whenever I go to Ahmedabad, but not even by default or by mistake. I tell them that you should do something like one or two things without they specifically asking me. Otherwise, they are brilliant people. They are bright people. They are more than capable to do right things. So that is second part. The third part is, am I feeling sometimes to go back? Now this November I will complete almost 6 years, I guess. Yeah,
Right.
since and not even a day I thought about it that I have made a wrong decision. And part of it is that I never got time to think like that. Yes,
Right.
right now this is the longest period I am not traveling. Otherwise, my traveling schedule was so hectic. At some time point, I used to handle three programs one after the other. I remember I was handling the San Jose program, Wembley program, and Singapore program.
Wow.
So twice I started from San Jose, took a halt in London, came to Delhi just to change the suitcase, went to Singapore, and again came back. So it used to be very hectic for me, and that gives me one good thing that has happened. This is that I have met enormous number of very talented people from diverse fields across the globe, which is, I guess, the best thing that has happened in this task. And I love meeting people, interacting and learning from them. And the amount of diverse people I have met is simply amazing. So there is always something new to learn in this, and I am enjoying it.
Right. In fact, we would love to continue the conversation with you, but time is a constraint. And in fact, messages are pouring in that they are really. I think this is a very new area of work which probably many people were not aware of. So that's why I really wanted to have this conversation. We've also got Dr. Dhananjay Keskar from Mauritius, who says
Uh,
that he's a big admirer of your work and
oh, thank you
whatever
very much.
Honorable Prime Minister and you and BJP are doing are very well received in the country. So you've got a lot of fan following. Somebody from Indonesia is also joining in saying the same thing. So I'm sure your work is very well received, and we are also privileged to learn it from the horse's mouth. So thank you so much, Dr. Vijayji, for joining with us and sharing your valuable time and
Thanks
sharing
a lot.
these finer aspects of your job, which probably we will not get to hear anywhere else. So thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
deeply
Thank you. I
appreciate
really appreciate talking to you. Namaste.
it. And to the audience, we are now in the second leg of the program, and we have got another amazing journey like the first one we heard from Dr. Vijayji. This one is also very inspiring in a way because I think many of you, Dr. Vijay's journey is probably a bit, I would say, still a bit revolutionary because he was a sort of a scientist in a specific domain, then completely took a U-turn and entered politics. I think this journey is probably relatable by many of you because this sounds of a corporate journey, and then how did you find a true purpose and meaning in life while you were doing that. uh, Before I do that, let me double check if Fatima ji is with us. Fatima ji, are you there?
Hi, Kartik. I apologize for logging in a bit late, but I've got in on a lovely conversation. Huge fan of Mr. Vijay, so it was exciting to listen to him. But I'm here.
Great. And in fact, we are really privileged to have you with us, Fatima Agarkar. Uh, you are a hard person to catch hold of, a very sought after speaker. So, we are really privileged that we could find time on your diary and you shared this valuable time with us. For everybody's reference, again, I'm obligated to a short intro, but I know Fatima ji's list of achievements go far and long. And I was just going to continue with where I left. That her journey is pretty relatable to all of us because Fatima ji was working in a corporate world like most of us, right? She worked in companies like Commerce Bank, Times of India, Egon Zender International. But while doing that, and we are going to poke her more on when we invite her to talk her experience, she felt an inner urge to explore the true purpose and meaning of what she wants to do in her life. and she started to give more focus towards education, and in education also very specifically focusing on professionalizing the education space and making it much more personalized and profound. In fact, I really love one of her and I keep following her on social media, and she does a lot of sessions and webinars, and almost all of them are very interesting and very unique in the way she talks about pedagogy and how the current situation has really changed the education model on its head. And one of the sayings which I like about her is that teachers and educators really need to reimagine their role from teaching to reaching the learners or students. And I think it's a very powerful and a profound statement, which really encapsulates her vision and dream of how education would look like. She's also a veteran of education, 3 educational startups. She's been the managing trustee and director of JBC in education. She's also the co-founder of KA Edu Associates, and now known as Agarkar Center of Excellence. She is also an edupreneur, a mentor, and she's got that fine print of, and we were talking about this with Dr. Vijay ji also, the transfer of skills. So I think she has very beautifully transferred her skills and blended it with her vision of education. She's also the state and university topper of prestigious Mumbai-based Sydenham College of Commerce and Economics, and holds a degree from Birmingham, UK in Masters of Business Administration. She's won host of awards and laurels. She was also recently, featured as Education World's Top 50 Young Educators. And she also sits on the advisory board of so many trusts, including EduTech India, All India Gaming Federation, School Wizard, Walk Hard Foundation, and so on. She's also the vice president of Early Childhood Association and the Mumbai territory head for Association for Primary Education and Research in India. And I would not fail to mention to everyone that her husband, Mr. Ajit Agarkar, is a well-known cricketer and a pride of our nation. We've all, watched him growing up and a huge fan of him. I just wanted to share that with everybody. With this, a very warm welcome to you, Fatema. Thanks for sparing your time, and we really appreciate it. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Dr. Vijay a while back, that you were sailing along in your corporate job, working in top multinational companies, sort of snuggled and stabled into a career. Which was that triggering moment for you when you decided, no, this is not something I do for the rest of my life, and I really want to make a difference in a more meaningful way?
So I'm actually going to get into a little bit of a tough spot here and get myself in trouble, because my moment of inspiration was really the fact that I recognized that I didn't want to work for someone else. Okay. Maybe I'm a businessman's daughter. He took his plunge in the world of entrepreneurship many years ago, and maybe that played a part in my journey. But quite frankly, I recognize that if I wanted to bring about a change, I cannot follow. I'll have to take that risk and lead from the front, because at least then things are in your control. Cricket is a game where you have 11 and all 11 contribute. Of course, there are a few who take the lead, but it's a team sport. I think I was better off leading the team for myself. And honestly, the 3 organizations that I was a part of, a lot of them were doing work in the education space. So we were looking at, privatization, a lot of corporates wanting to set up K-12 schools. And you recognize India as a country so demographically different, it should be called the United States of India. I mean, every part is so different. It's not possible to centralize. Our babies today lie 80% where there's no connectivity, today. So our world is very difficult. And I was part of the problem for too long. I wanted to be a part of the solution, because it's easy to sit on the fence and say, "Arey yaar, you could do this, government could do this. Isne ye nahi kiya, usne wo nahi kiya." It's very tough when you're leading it from the front and saying, "Now I'm a part of the solution." I wanted to do that. I wasn't a mother then. And I'm going to say selfishly, I wanted to make sure that the future generation perhaps didn't have to go through what I went through. For me, schooling was very competitive. I came from a very prestigious school that had award-winning industrialists emerge. I was an average kid, and I felt we never celebrated being ordinary. So I grew up very competitive, getting those 98% stopping, but my childhood was lost. I was hoping to change the narrative. Um, and you know what? Actually, the sad part was I went for the annual concert of my school, and the teacher that taught me was still teaching. That scared me. The world had evolved. Uh, and those kids there needed something more. I'm 45. I feel my shelf life in this industry should be up to 50. Let the younger ones come through with fresher ideas. I think that's what I wanted to bring about change. Studying abroad made me realize that we were still very, very traditional back in the way we were organizing ourselves. I learned a lot going abroad, living abroad. And I wanted to make sure that this young generation comes back and contributes. Of course, I haven't done even an iota of the work that Dr. Vijay has done. But I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs started that move saying, we want to contribute in our own way. We want to bring the private and the public education a lot more closer. And I think that was my moment of inspiration. One, I didn't want to work for someone, and I wanted to be a part of the solution.
And I personally like the statement about celebrating mediocrity and average. So I really like it personally. So that's a good thing and heartening to hear. But talking about change, Fatima, and I know I was reading about you that, you really want to professionalize education. And, sometimes this conversation in my limited experience of dealing with educators in this country, sometimes that conversation doesn't go very well, because traditionally the whole concept of Gurukul, Guru, Shishya, Dakshina and whatnot is very deeply rooted and embedded in the minds of both educators, parents, students, teachers, and they all consider it as a very sacrosanct thing that, education is something, and they always misconstrue professionalizing with making it, more commercial, more service oriented. Education is not really a service, it's a noble cause. So how difficult it is to really implement this idea of professionalizing education with these, that whole dharna which we have in this country. And I'm sure you must have faced a lot of challenges, and from your smile I can make out that probably you are reminiscing some such conversations. How hard it is, and what's your take on that?
You've rightly pointed out, Kartik, I think the word professionalism stands for certain values. It stands for quality systems, processes, operating protocols that basically help generate solutions. That comes at a cost, that will come at an investment, that will also come with its own set of accountability. So that's what I call professionalism. Education has always been sacrosanct, whether you call it public or private. Education is a constitutional right. Right to education is everyone's right in this country. So let's not take that away. Just because you're a private player doing it with better infrastructure, better systems, better processes, why don't you want to be a part of that progress? Isn't our country on that journey, our Honorable Prime Minister's vision, to become that superpower? To become that superpower, you'll need private players to come in because they have the experience. They bring in cross-industry experiences. We're not taking anything away from our Gurukul system. That we invented zero. We've created models. However, I think we need to recognize that evolution has happened and we need to move beyond. I'm going to say simply, you don't penalize a private hospital for the services they gender. So why penalize private players for professionalizing it? Professionalization and commercialization are words that cannot be interchangeable because that's wrong. For me, every child matters, be it in the Anganwadi or be it in these 5-star kind of school infrastructures that have been built. But isn't that demographic unique? I mean, if you can afford to, if that person, I mean, it's a demand and supply. If that is matching your pace, why don't you? Because at some point that is progressing forward. I think our country needs better private-public partnership. Today, it breaks my heart that 80% don't have connectivity. That means this online learning that could happen, that could save these children and they don't lose a year, is being compromised because we haven't built in IT infrastructure. Put private players in place and say, you help cluster of schools. Why can't it be a partnership? Why does it have to be one versus the other? And I think our country has done that for long enough. I think we cannot be talking about, for me, that child in the Angadwali would probably be my prime minister tomorrow. So I want to make sure that child gets the best foundation. And if I can contribute in some way, I want to do that. I think that's the narrative we're after. So professionalization is creating better systems that work for everyone, not the elite players. And I think, I think media has played a big role in marginalizing the private players and calling them commercial, as opposed to, Kartik, come on, you're a management student. It is ROI at the end of the day.
Right.
Let's not kid ourselves about it. Don't make education so biased that you treat it as non-for-profit. There is investment there. There are people who are pulling in systems. Let them be rewarded for that, but you're also upgrading quality. Why not?
Right. And in fact, since you mentioned about online education and the issues around connectivity, even the ones who are able to connect, there is a big debate, and I'm sure you are part and central to many of those conversations, where people are sort of debating that whether it's the same level of learning outcomes, can they be really achieved in an online environment? Students are complaining that they are not really engaged in a virtual environment. Teachers are complaining that it's very hard to discipline students in a, 50 snapshots in a screen. It's very difficult to manage them like this, and not even talk about the hanging screens and whatnot they face, because again, they don't have the right IT infrastructure. And a lot of it has also caused significant emotional stress in teachers, anxiety in the minds of parents, and skepticism in the minds of teachers, that they are also beginning to question that really, can they match those outcomes? Can they really engage students? Or as many people in the media, which you were saying, they try to whitewash, saying that, they're just the typical word khana purti is happening, but real outcomes can never be achieved in this sort of an environment. What's your view on online education, and does it really deliver tangible learning outcomes?
Kartik, I feel as management students, we need to recognize that there is a reason there is history. In 1840, a scientist actually started off remote learning. Only in 2000 did we begin to understand its importance and relevance. Did we think a pandemic of this nature would ever hit us? No. So did we skill ourselves with IT? No. We were okay if drones were going to sanitize our containment zones, but we're not okay to now adjust to this online world. We were not prepared, I think, which is why there are challenges.
Right.
Anything new that you're getting exposed to takes time. Look at some of the progressive countries in the world. They've switched over. There are schools in our country that have switched over. You know why? Because they already experimented with it 4 years ago. They didn't think about coronavirus. They thought about what if we have a blended model. So I'm going to say that, our country at the moment is in its teething phase. The bell curve.
Mm-hmm.
Our graph is going up. So we're learning as we go. Teachers were badly caught out because they were not IT enabled. I mean, it's baffling how someone in 2020 doesn't know how to save on a Google Drive. And on one hand, we talk about progress. On the other hand, we talk about pen and paper. Examination boards have cancelled exams and they're going on marks internal. 5 years later, it could be an online exam. I'm a product of a GMAT system. I studied for the written exam.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it 2 months later. I had to go online. I think I lost out because I just didn't know how to cope. So I think we'll have to skill up. There are challenges, no doubt. You know what? AI, the artificial intelligence, is actually working on those kids who are not concentrating 50 on a screen. Those those kids are going to be brought up. That's a Harvard study, by the way. So as we're going with online, we're also recognizing that there are enough solutions. The good ones are already embracing this as feedback and correcting themselves. Zoom today has breakaway sessions. You can have smaller classes with your habitual offenders, I call them, those who are sleeping in your physical world will continue to sleep in your virtual world. If you're boring, you're going to be caught out. I remember as doing my MBA, I used to go for organizational behavior. Worst topic. I used to think, God, how can people go on and on about feelings and processes and how to motivate people? People should just be motivated. Honestly, I wish I'd paid attention to OB. It is the only thing I've used in my career so far. Organizational behavior. That's how companies are built. So kids will always do that. Teachers are going to find ways, technologies, EdTech companies are doing enough to solve it. Kartik, I'm going to say it's been a 3-month report card. Give it some time. This, I have a 14-year-old, okay? And parents are talking about this as a gap year. I'm saying I don't want a gap year. My child has gone into high school. He's going into grade 9. This is a very crucial year for him because he needs to learn, not score marks. He needs to learn those facts that he's understood. So I think parents were just overwhelmed thinking exams kaise honge, marks kaise honge, college mein kaise jayenge, portion same hoga. All this has been reworked. It's the anxiety, sorry to say, created by media. And then how it is, na herd mentality. Isne bola, so let's join in. This must be a problem. So let's just join in the problem. Take a step back, parents. Take a step back, educators, skill up, because definitely you were not using technology to its efficiency. The good part is the rate of skilling up has heightened. It's like our spike rates, right? Cases are increasing, but we're reducing the mortality rate. It's kind of like what's happening in the education space. We're still skilling, but we're skilling faster, which is the good news. I think we're going to embrace this. There's no way out. I don't think schools K-12 are opening anytime soon. So we might have 8 months of virtual schooling. So we'll all have to rise to the occasion.
But, talking about Fatema, I picked up a word in your conversation, which you just saying about experimentation. And I think even in virtual world, experimentation is very important because as you rightly said, students, and I personally believe that there is a higher possibility of getting disengaged in a virtual environment because that level of physical discipline is not there simply, right? Because teachers walking in a classroom, talking to your peers, would still keep you awake. It did me as a student, right? Because even if I was bored, I had somebody to talk to. But that's not possible in a virtual environment. Do you think there is a huge scope for innovation in virtual learning as well? And I know you do something very interesting with Ajit as well around, you have a platform and a product where you use sports as an analogy to teach education. Do you think those kind of innovations, gamification, giving them analogies of outside education realm would be really helpful in supporting that cause?
Yeah, Kartik, absolutely. Whether it's management students, undergrad students, the seminar type of format is not going to work in the virtual world. You're going to have what we call synchronous and asynchronous classes. So basically, what you're going to have is live sessions when you're discussing case studies, when you come with questions and you're addressing your doubts, but you're going to have curated content that you're going to work at your pace. So, if I'm like you, the kind of guy who just drifts off, I might be alert at that point of time. I might just take 10 minutes to go through the content, kind of the flip classroom model. That's all I need. But in the classroom, I have to listen for 45 minutes to the teacher say the same thing because the rest haven't understood. So this kind of innovation is already in play. It has to be more efficient. Kartik, I'm going to say you're going to have shorter sessions. So if you're trying to say that if you had an 8-hour schedule, in the virtual world, it is going to be half because that is the optimization of attention. You're going to have to make it more project-based. You're going to have more breakaway sessions. In fact, a lot more customization. Like I can actually do a poll immediately after this session and get everyone to say, hey, Fatema was boring. Or, we didn't understand what she said. She spoke too fast. I'm getting input after my every session. This we never did in the physical world, whether it's at management level or K-12. So there are a lot of these innovations that are actually more customizable. And like I said, I can see those kids who put their screen off and said, there's a data problem. I have to put my screen off and he's gaming. So those kids are going to be caught out, and teachers are already doing that and having smaller sessions.
I saw somebody who put an image saying connecting as an image. So he's always connecting.
But Kartik, this is normal, right? Why are we trying to have these perfect? We never had these perfect students in our classrooms. We were never perfect. They're never going to be. I mean, I love their innovation. I love their ability to think that this is what I can get out of. This is a great excuse. That's how the teachers are going to be smart and pull them out. So what gamification is going to be the virtual engagement. Very important to give them real life relevance. There's no point talking about a volcano online. I mean, show them a video, get them to see a movie, understand the devastation, understand the geographical implications, and do a quick quiz with them. So you're going to have to change the format of your delivery. The good part is students are going to have it much shorter. That means we can do a lot more because you can break it up. So, like cricket math, we use cricket and we use math skills and combine it. Make it fun. This is the innovation that you're going to see in the education space.
Right. And in fact, I know you personally feel very strongly about children for special needs, right? And I think inclusive education is something which is very well sort of talked about or overhyped. But on the ground, I personally feel that very little is being done. And when we talk about, whatever is happening right now and everything going online, and, there are certain kids with special needs who may not be very, comfortable or conversant learning in this manner virtually. What are your views and vision around how can we make the entire experience more inclusive for children with special needs, and what actionable things, whether we talk about from a policy perspective or whether we're talking about this whole public-private partnership, which you talked about in the first instance, what can be the incentives and motivators for different stakeholders to come together to address this issue of children with special needs?
Kartik, that's a tough one because when you look at special needs, it's a huge spectrum. There are children with learning disabilities, and then there are children with mental retardation. So when you look at the entire gamut of the disabilities, it's different. Like children with learning difficulties can still be in an inclusive classroom, even virtually, by having shorter periods of interaction with teachers and more personalized, so smaller groups. The one-on-one is possible because the hours have reduced. It's where, children with the IQ under 60, where there is an academic plateau that reaches. Because I think someone's actually pointed out education is not just about information being transferred. It's about understanding and relevance, but it's also about, sport, it's about social connect, all of that. What I do understand is a lot of therapists, a lot of psychiatrists, a lot of psychologists have been able to equip parents now who are at home and have a lot more time than they did in the physical world to be able to manage, some responsibilities with these children. And a lot of it is happening online, and they've come up with different techniques of drama, art therapy to actually engage with children. So the innovation that you talked about is actually happening in special needs multifold than it is in the mainstream education. And to answer that question, because I think it's very important to recognize this, is that even with schools, with virtual schools, as a school, you're thinking of many things. You're thinking of tuning in activities. You're thinking of quality circles when the kids come in, which is basically talk time. What did you do? How was your day? How was your night? Did you get enough rest? So what did you do? So there's a conversation. We call it tuning in. Then there are periods in classes, but there are also extracurricular, co-curricular classes. So there is PE happening, there is yoga happening, there's art, there's music, there's drama. So we recognize that honestly, information is going to be 40%, it's 60% all of this that is going to create the engagement. So educators are already thinking about that. And that anyway helps the children with special needs, because this is what they need. This is where they actually come alive. So it's more, in my mind, the innovation is happening more with special needs, but Kartik, those with severe disabilities, they're on medication, they need physical time, they need therapy time. It has to be handled by experts. A parent cannot, and which is why I'm hoping these centers for them open up first, but they are also most likely to be prone to infections
Right.
because of their condition. So not an easy one. I'm just hoping that if centers or pockets can be opened up for them, where at least they get their therapy with their therapist. It's not a one size fits all. I think the green zones can start demonstrating some movement, start operationalizing. The whole country can't start together. We're going to have to do it in parts, and also the need based solutions. And this section definitely needs our biggest attention because it's 1 in 6 as we speak, and that's an alarming statistic.
Right. And in fact, just in the interest of time, I'm going to have a last thought from you. There was this big debate I remember before COVID, right? And especially if I talk about early childhood education, because I know that's a focus area for you as well, that, devices are really bad. Students should be spending less and less time on screen time to be closely monitored, not allow phones in schools and whatnot. And now with whatever is happening currently, we've sort of just forgotten that narrative and we're talking about how to make this more engaging. What do you think will happen in 6 months from now when things probably and hopefully go back to normalcy? Where would we are stand in terms of devices and young kids?
In all these, when the screen time debate happened, because of the recreation bit. When parents wanted kids to eat, screen de do. When parents had work to do, screen de do. Or when parents were in a restaurant and wanted a private moment but had to take the kid out, screen de do. So it was used as the pacifier. I think now evolution has happened. The glare, research, Oxford, Harvard, Stanford, everyone's come out with it. That screen time narrative is gone. Wo zamana gaya hai. We're talking about 2020. Our gadgets have changed. Technology has changed. It's not anti-glare. And honestly, there's no scientific data to suggest that it's detrimental. Of course, 10 hours if you're on screen, it is. But that's when the pediatrics, the developmental pediatricians have also come up with guidelines. It's the 2020 rule. Like if you're glued on 20 minutes, take those eye breaks, adjust, sleep better, eat better, exercise, automatically screen time will be less. But Kartik, the reality of our world is from now to maybe another 100 years, and I hope only then the pandemic happens again, if it does ever, it's going to be blended learning. There's going to be technology playing a bigger part, even in the physical classrooms in some form, because you might find that a lot of the assessments might just now have an online component. God forbid, the vaccine doesn't come out in 18 months. Schools will not open. So you will have to rely on technology. And if children are learning, then you have to play more physical time, more time with the family, talking. Parents have to work harder.
Yeah. So with this, we are at the end of this second leg of the session as well. So thank you so much, Fatema ji, for joining with us. We really appreciate you. And I think, the comments are pouring in, and I think it's really interesting. Both these sessions were, I'm sure the audience would agree, were very different from our general genre of, CXO level board conversations, which typically get very cookie cutter after a while. So I think it's very interesting to see people who have actually have the courage to go away from this cookie cutter path and actually follow their passion and their calling. So it's really amazing. I again thank Dr. Vijay as well. Yes, Fatma.
Kartik, I'm actually going to use this opportunity to, get a lot of the management students who may have not picked up a career yet, or maybe waiting for the right opportunity. This is something that Wendy Corp in America did, which is Teach for America. So she never got into the big five, which was her dream. So she said, you know what, I'm going to change the narrative. She got people who are employed by the top 5 to take a gap here and go and teach in primary and middle school and higher education. Because she said, why is it that we can't learn from the best? And if the best were being hired by top 5 companies, our big 5 that we all love, Why don't you use this time to teach? So think about it. You can volunteer. Companies would love content and orators who can contribute and teach better. You're all management kids. You all can use this time to actually skill up, and it looks good on your resume. So see how you can contribute to the K-12.
That's a great thought. With this, we are at the end of the session. Thank you again, Dr. Vijay ji. Thank you, Fatema ji, and thank you everyone at the AIMA team, Rajni, Sanjay ji, Anubhav, and the entire team. And thanks everyone. Stay safe, stay at home, and take care. See you in the next session. Bye.